You might answer your phone calls.
Alright.
Yep. All right, I'm called over to the Town Board meeting at the Town of Lisbon Town Hall on Monday, March 9th, 2020 at 6:33 p.m. Roll call, please.
President Chairman Joe Osterman.
Here.
Supervisors Gamino.
Here.
Moonen.
Here.
Lotecker.
Here.
Beal.
Here.
Also present myself, Gina Gresh, Administrator. Financial Advisor John Cameron. Public Works Director Joe DiStefano. And Parks Director John Graney.
Thank you. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3 is comments from citizens present. Anyone wish to make any comments tonight? All right, item 4 is the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered in one motion unless a town board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda. We got the February 24th and March 2nd, 2020 town board meeting minutes, the operator's licenses, and the election inspector's appointments. Does anyone have anything you want removed, or is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll place a motion on the consent agenda to approve items 4A through 4C.
Move to approve. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Linda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Approval of bills.
Tonight's accounts payable check register is a total of $107,510.15. Top 5 expenditures: $31,129.50 to Kunkel for TID 1 engineering, 2020 pavement resurfacing program work, updating the census map, and Pauline Haas subdivision review, which is reimbursable. $19,611.38 to Premier Building Inspections for February contract meetings and reinforcement and re-inspections. $14,380.69 to Compass Minerals for 194.15 tons of road salt delivered. $4,357.50 to Synetic Group for February interim clerk contract work. $4,020.50 to MATC for paramedic tuition for Charles Chambliss Jr.
All right, any questions or comments on the bills?
Yes, for the MATC. Now, is he a brand new member of the fire department?
I don't think he's new, I just think he's new to taking the classes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So again, if he doesn't follow through and stay with us, that's reimbursable after so long a time?
Yep.
And that's
okay.
watched closely? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion on the bill register?
I'll make a motion to approve the report dated 2/25 to 3/5/2020 as written for the amount of $1,700, $510.15.
Is there a second?
107,510.15.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Number 6 is announcements and correspondence. We've got the meeting schedule. Wednesday, March 11th, be the Lisbon Sussex Joint Planning Committee meeting here at the Town Hall at 6:15. On the 12th will be the Plan Commission meeting here at the Town Hall at 6:30. On the 16th will be a Park Committee meeting at the Richard Young Fire Station at 6:30. On the 18th will be a Sanitary District meeting at 6:30 at the Town Hall. On the 23rd will be the next Town Board meeting. April 2nd will be the absentee voting to 5 p.m. And on the 3rd also absentee voting up till 5 p.m. And on the 7th will be the spring election and presidential primary all day. Does anyone else have any other announcements or correspondence to note? We also have the Village of Sussex 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan Amendment and Rezoning Public Hearings correspondence. That is also in there. Item 7, Department Reports, Administrator Report.
The Spring Gazette was finalized earlier last week and is going to print soon, and it should be in everyone's mailbox around March 16th, so a week from today. was posted online and emailed to those on the newsletter email list last week. There is a town board meeting the day before the August 11th fall primary election. The town hall meeting room is going to be rearranged for the election Monday morning, so we'll either have to have another meeting another day or cancel the meeting. And I know it seems like a long way out, but it's going to come fast. The DOT multimodal awards were published on Wednesday, March 4th, and I'm disappointed to report that our Lake 5 Path project was not funded. DOT received $1.4 billion in requests, but only had $75 million available. Competition was fierce. Comfort was hoping that the DOT would pick the project because of the amount requested and the connectivity and economic impact to the other communities. They thought our application was strong, but there was simply not enough money available. And then lastly, the February ACH auto pay monthly checklist is included for your review.
All right, any questions for Gina? Thank you, Gina. Clerk report.
Spring primary election had a 23% turnout. We're working on reconciling the voter participation with spring primary, and we're working on the upcoming spring election and presidential preference primary. We're preparing for a very high turnout for April, about 80% or more. And the use of the new polling place at Redeemer United Church of Christ was a huge success with a lot of positive reviews. We've had 8 new poll workers sign up this year with another 5 in the works. We just approved 3 of them tonight. And election work is at full task right now with several new registrations, numerous absentee ballot requests. We're probably getting anywhere from 3 to 5 a day for requests for every election for the rest of the year. Liquor, beer, cigarette, and operator bartender license renewals will be sent out next week in preparation for the June approval. Open book is scheduled for Wednesday, May 20th from 9 to 11 a.m. Board of review is scheduled for Wednesday, June 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. And the biannual tax-exempt property notices were mailed out this past week for verification. That's it.
All right, any questions on the clerk report? Thank you for that. Public Works Department report.
Hello, everyone. All right, month of February wasn't too terrible on winter weather events. We went out 5 times. We spent time anti-icing the roads prior to snow and ice events. We did have actually this year, which we haven't seen in the last few winters, where the cul-de-sacs were getting a lot of snow piled up, which we had a lot of meltdowns the last couple of winters in the winter, so that wasn't an issue, where this year we went out and pushed those piles back, and the cul-de-sacs made room for future snow. Obviously now, you wouldn't be able to tell that, but obviously we received salt for Lisbon and Merton, pushed that into our shed, kept the trucks cleaned up. This month, or last month, we installed the radar signs that we purchased through the capital fund with the sheriff's department recommendation. They are digital radar signs that we can set when the flash speed. There's one you see probably by your house on Hillside Road currently, and one on Lake 5 Road. You know, they need to be charged every 2 weeks, so they're down for a day. I mean, they're up there, they just aren't working for a day because we're charging the batteries, and then we put them back in. But as we get complaints through the summer and whatnot, we can move them around a little bit. They're heavy, so they're not something we easily can just throw up on a signpost and hope, because it's just heavy. Our signposts aren't made to hold something like that, so we put them on telephone poles right now, and it's working out really well. So that might be limited where somebody calls and it's like, well, where can we put it there or not? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but we will move them around, you know, here and there. But if we get complaints, they'll be nice to have the throw up. So they're working out pretty good. We had an election in February, so took care of putting up and taking down all the equipment. Took care of potholes as needed. We did start grinding the compost site, which has since been about 90 to 95% completed. We just have probably another day's worth of work that he's going to come back for, and we'll finish up in there. So that was a big hurdle to get done. We've been working on the remodel when we can, doing a lot of stuff in-house, so saving some money, but it's going awesome. Doing all the plumbing, electrical. The only thing we've subbed out so far are the lockers, which are coming next week, and the floors we've been having epoxied professionally just to get a really nice finish and longevity. But it's really looks good. Quite excited and happy about how it's turning out, just fresh and kind of, you know, like redoing your house. It's exciting. So that's been going well. I personally attended, obviously, a board meeting in February, our Waukesha County Public Works Association meeting. I go to it monthly, where I'm the vice president. Exciting. But staff and I attended the Connex trade show at the State Fair Park. There were 2 pre-con meetings with the Village of Sussex for Maple Avenue. So that's going to get rolling here next week or the week after. And so I attended both those because there's 2 kind of sections that were bid out separately. There were 2 residential informational meetings I went to at the Village of Sussex in the evening. One was in February, one was in March. We had our bid opening here for the paving program. I started the crack filling list, which I'm about halfway done with, getting ready for this year. And then I working with the guys like normal. But a couple of little notes. Seasonal weight limits went into effect today. So 3 weeks-ish is just my estimate right now. I'm not putting no dates on it, but there isn't a lot of frost, obviously, out there. Some people are going to say, there's no frost out there. Why can't we truck? Obviously, I hear it all. But anyways, you got to put them up. It's cheap insurance for the town to save $8 million that we just spent on roads. So anybody that I was very proactive making a lot of phone calls and seemed to really help this year for builders and septic guys and whoever that I told them last week. So they had probably 3 days to do stuff, and that seemed to really help. And we've had a couple calls today, but nobody all fired up or anything, so that's good. And I personally am going on a vacation if my cruise doesn't get canceled on March 23rd, so we'll see what happens. Right now I'm planning on going to Texas and then down into the Gulf, but whatever. I'm not coronavirus prone, so we'll see what happens. But I don't know. There's a lot of things are going on, so we'll see what happens. But either way, if I'm gone, I'll send an email out to you guys so you're kind of aware, and Mike wanted to cover while I'm gone. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Thank you.
Supervisor reports.
I have nothing to report. Our meeting is next week.
Okay. Anything from anyone else? All right. The fire department one?
Oh,
I'm actually we have John from Mellors here tonight, so I'm gonna skip ahead to item 10C, which is discussion necessary action on resolution 07-20, a resolution providing for the sale of approximately $2,435,000 of general obligation promissory notes, series 2020A, and then also the next one, which will be discussion necessary action resolution 8-20, a resolution providing for the sale of approximately $1,540,000 worth of taxable general obligation promissory notes, series 2020B.
Right. Good afternoon, Good evening, everybody. Daylight savings time. John Cameron with Ellers, and I'll actually kind of walk through both of these concurrently because they really follow on the same timeline. So the worksheets themselves that are part of the pre-sale reports are really consistent with what we talked about at last month's town board meeting when I was here, with really 2 changes. Number one, we are showing 2 different sales. Part is tax exempt and part is taxable, and that's because since last month we were able to get the draft development agreement for the development within the TIF district, and had that sent over to your bond counsel, Quarles and Brady, for review, who determined that the private what are contemplated at this point is the water system costs may be privately owned and operated within the association of the industrial business park within the TIF district. If that's the case, that would trigger that system to be taxable, or the financing for that system to be taxable, as well as the fire suppression system. That would also be part of the infrastructure that you're going to be going out for bid for shortly. So for that reason, we had to separate the infrastructure within the TID into 2 different GO notes. One, the 2020A is the $2,435,000. That is being issued on a tax exempt basis, and then the $1,540,000 2020B GO notes would be issued on a taxable basis. And we did look at, given where interest rates are and really the difference in the spread between taxable and tax exempt, we did look at the possibility of doing one financing on a taxable basis versus going this route and doing 2 on a tax exempt basis. And both, in terms of just from a planning estimate, the total principal and interest payment and overall cost of issuance between the 2 still seemed to be a better deal for the town to do two different issues versus one on a taxable basis. So that's the route that we're proceeding with. So just to kind of walk you through, if you actually want to jump to page 6 of the 2020A report, just to kind of walk through the timeline. We're here this evening, and the two resolutions that you would have before you would be to cause the sale of the GEO notes to occur. We would be looking at getting the primary offering document, the preliminary official statement together right around the first week of April. Scheduling the conference call with Moody's there around this probably the second week of April, and getting that scheduled and done for both of these issues would be rated. We would then have the actual sale to award the notes on April 13th. So we would take bids in the morning, and we would be at your town board meeting in the evening to hopefully tell you about all the great sale results that we have for you. So that's kind of it from a timeline standpoint. So any questions on timeline?
Anything from the board?
Issues? Okay. The last thing, again, the worksheets, the second change from last time is that we were able to incorporate the actual bid numbers, which you have on your agenda as well. So Kunkel sent that over to us. We were able to work that into the sizing. It is better than what we showed last month in terms of a little bit lower cost. So great results, which is fantastic, and hopefully we'll have very good sale results to show you in April. Last thing I'll show you, and then I promise I will shut up. If you jump to page 11, which is the last page in the pre-sale report, and if you're really, you don't even have to really be paying much attention to what's going on out there, just a little bit of attention, you really know what's happening out in the world in terms of. Do you need a copy?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm fine. Are you fine? Okay.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, just in terms of what's happening out in the world with the markets, what happened in the stock market today, and kind of what's happening with interest rates. We really are at kind of a record low again. So, from the town standpoint, really a fantastic time to be in the market issuing the debt that you're issuing. So we really are catching it over a 3-year period, really at the low point, which is pretty amazing. So interesting times that we live in. So any questions overall?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So item 10C was resolution 7-20. This is on the $2,435,000 2020A. Does anybody have any questions on that? I'll move that we approve resolution 07-20, resolution providing for the sale of approximately $2,435,000 of general obligation promissory notes, series 2020A. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Anything on the second one, on D? I move that we approve resolution 08-20, a resolution providing for the sale of approximately $1,540,000 worth of taxable general obligation promissory notes, series 2020B. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Linda. Any discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. See you next month.
We'll then skip back to 9, unfinished business. A, discussion and necessary action on the fire department's 2019 capital projects carryover requests.
All right, Chief Brom and Treasurer Bookman reviewed the fire department's capital projects carryover figures, and they both agree on the following. Waukesha County digital paging, that's a project from 2018. The project was completed at the end of 2019. We just haven't received an invoice from the county yet. And that's for a total of $1,670. And hose and appliances, with the possible merger, they are reconsidering inventories. and needs, so we're not sure if we have to buy those or not, so he'd like to carry over $5,193.56 for a total of $6,863.36.
Questions or comments on the carryover?
So there's enough money in their budget to pay for this.
Yep.
This would have been from stuff from last year, the money that was
Yes.
there.
Mhm. Okay, I make a motion we approve the fire department's 2019 capital projects carryover requests.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item B, discussion and necessary action on the updated Town of Lisbon Employee Handbook.
Alright. So everybody got the latest and greatest handbook and employee benefits manual in the packet. And then I had Joe and John review it one last time over the weekend, and we just have a couple super minor changes. So, in the handbook, section 5.07C, that is the comp time in the section C on page, I'm sorry, A, can't read my own handwriting. The use in the second paragraph says, at the end of each calendar year, any accumulated comp time not used will be paid to the employee. Well, with Public Works, they start their winter plowing season on November 15th. So there are other references to that in the handbook. So we're just trying to keep things consistent. So I added text, Department of Public Works employees will be paid out for accumulated comp time not used by November 14th. Because if they have to get paid out by the end of the year, now they're earning comp time with the newest plowing season, and that's what they're using for the next year to take comp time. And Joe can explain that probably better than I can.
Yeah, because basically come November 15th, that is the quote unquote please don't leave was Lisbon, for the guys. And if you reset it at January 1st, let's just say, so we would work November 15th on, you would have, a couple snowstorms, whatever. So maybe you'd comp up 40 hours, let's just say. And come December 31st, January 1st, the area there, you're going to bring that down to 0. Well, the chances of us being able to take off 40 hours in late December is not really acceptable, technically, right? Because we're not supposed to take off a whole lot. And second, it just probably isn't going to work out because it's tough with weather. So what made more sense to me was you go to that November 15th date and make that your reset. So the guys can accumulate all through the winter season rather than the calendar year. And then come end of March, you're kind of hopefully out of the snow groove, and now you can utilize your 80 hours if you were able to comp 80 hours. And then I will say probably 99% of the time we're going to enter November 15th that following season, and nobody's going to have any comp time left. I mean, usually 2 weeks, guys. And we use comp time first because vacation time you can carry over up to 80 hours if approved. Comp time, you're going to use your comp time first. That was always the policy we did. So it just makes sense. And if I'm not explaining that right, please ask me.
So basically, instead of having a calendar year to do this, you'd be your year would be November 15th through November 14th of the next year.
Correct.
Is what it would be.
It would just be still a calendar year, just shifted 2 months or a month and a half.
Anybody have any issues with that?
No.
So when would be the payout for?
November 14th, in essence, I think, and November 15th, you'd go back to 0. If this would ever happen, I will be honest with you, I really don't ever see this happening unless, like, a guy random, just, I don't know, who's not going to take off 2 weeks, because you use that first, your comp time. So you're going to end up taking your 2 weeks off sometime between March 15th, let's say, and November 14th. So they are going to most likely be entering November 15th with 0 hours in that bank. And you're not going to pay anybody out. I don't think you're going to just ever pay anybody out. But I mean, if you do, you do. But that means somebody took less than 2 weeks off. It just, if you're just taking random days off through the year, you're taking.
Or you
2 weeks.
accumulated it November 13th or 12th or.
True. I mean, that could be the thing. We get that Halloween snowstorm like we had last year, and then maybe you did get it and you couldn't use it in 2 weeks, and then you just get. But at that point, it would be no different if that person took overtime on their check. So you're really not. The town is not losing anything by doing this. You're either getting that employee a day off and you're paying them for not being here, or you're just giving them the payout. So it's a horse apiece.
I guess my thing would be is we're earning at one rate through the end of the calendar year, and then we're paying out at a different rate the following year.
Mm-hmm.
But normally it would end on December 31st, wouldn't it?
Right, but you would be paid out for that year's wage. What I'm saying is anything November and December you grab, you're earning X dollars. Now when you get paid out the following year, you're now presumably up a percentage raise.
Oh,
For instance, yeah, if you were taking those November and December wages, or let's say you comped it in November, December, right? But then you got paid out in November the following year, you're getting it paid out for the higher rate. Let's say we did a 2% raise, right? Then you get, but I mean, we could document when those hours were.
It
Doesn't
should be
matter if they
from
didn't use it.
it should be from the rate at the time that it was accumulated.
Right, but the way this is written, it's not.
Right.
I mean, we could keep
It would
track
be
of
paid out
those
at the new
banked
rate.
hours, right? Like 34 of those hours could be at 2019 or whatever, for instance, and then the 46 of those hours could be at the 2020, right? I mean, if that's how it goes, it's totally fine.
That is gonna be a bookkeeping nightmare for WRS. They have to get paid out at whatever they worked at that point of the year. So if they're getting paid for comp time in February that they accumulated in December, that's what they get paid out as their current rate of pay, because that's what they're earning WRS on. We can't split that. That.
I can give you a simple way to fix this and eliminate a payout altogether, and we do 80-hour bank, right? So the guys can, and we can make a rule right in there, because the fear is you bank 80 hours in January, okay? By January, we had a crazy December, we bank 80 hours. I don't get it, but let's just say I'm an hour employee. I take off 2 days in February. Well, now, and I use comp time. That's 16 hours of my comp time. That moves me down to 64 hours in my bank, right? Now we get a snowstorm after that, and I can bank back up 80. The rule of thumb was always, once you hit 80, you switch over to overtime. So what we can do is say, once you hit 80 within the winter season, you're maxed out. You have to switch over to overtime. There's no more banking. Even if you took a day of comp time through the winter, because it happens, a guy's, nice quiet week wants to get away for a day. You take 8 hours, now you're down to 72. You can't refill that up to 80. And then what would happen, I would just say, is come November, whatever, just leave that as a running pool. You know what I mean? If a guy still had 4 hours in there, just leave the 4 hours in there. He never used it. You guys aren't really losing anything on that, and just start comping time back up. Instead of paying anybody out, you just say, if we're allowing 80 hours to be carried over for vacation time, why can't we allow 4 hours? And I am not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. You guys will rarely ever see hours in there carried over. Just because it's the first 2 weeks you're going to use. These guys, who doesn't take 2 weeks off, right? Anymore. I mean, some people don't, but majority will, and I'm almost certain all these guys will. So, and even if they didn't take the full 2 weeks, you might be just coming into the following winter season with 2 hours in that bank, and now they just start accumulating. But they still can only max out at 80. We're not saying, they had 2 in there, now they can go get 80 more and be at 82. No. We're still going to max out at 80. So that's their. If they didn't, does that make sense to you guys a little bit?
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking of is the WRS reporting, though, is you're earning wages in 1 year and not essentially reporting those till the next year to WRS.
Well, we've done this forever,
But the
Johnny.
hours have already been
80 hours
worked
of comp
in.
time has been.
Like this guy, you're talking about 6 weeks when you're concerned, Mark, about the pay. Now we had a snowstorm, like Joe said, in October on Halloween. I don't think we went out much after that, so the most hours are probably going to accumulate in them 6 weeks before January 1st. It's probably less than 20. Because it takes 54 and a half hours to accumulate 80 hours of comp time. So Joe could check on that. He keeps very good records on how we went. So it's going to be minimum, But I know your question now is about reporting it. But years ago, that's how they used to be able to carry 80 hours of comp time over, and we went, now we wanted to go back to kind of how it is now. You earn it, you try to use it first, there's no carryover. So when you start earning, it's okay, we're gonna earn it from January, so now the season starts, like Joe said, November 15th, they're on call. So that 6 weeks kind of was just a carryover, but I don't think it's a whole lot of hours. It really isn't. Their main hour bulk is usually January and February, is when they get their bulk of the snow. So I just.
Since I've taken over, I've never had anybody enter the next winter season with any hours. But, I do payroll, I pay attention. So, every time once we got into the following winter season, everybody's bank of comp time is at 0 because it gets used first. So and me personally, when I was an employee, being able to build comp time, I always had a 0 going into the following winter season. It's just, so you're not going to run into that a lot. So, and, ever since I've worked here, we've had 80 hours of comp time. We've always had the comp time, so obviously, I don't know how they're doing it with the WRS, but what about just leaving it as that? You're not paying it out ever. It's just a running pool where you have maximum 80 hours. This is not an abuse thing where you can go, oh, I comped 80 last year, 80 this year, I got 160. No. 80 is the max. You use it down. If you have 2 hours sitting in that pool come the following season, or you could go, and it wouldn't even matter at that point. You wouldn't have an annual thing anymore. It would just be, it's an 80-hour bank. Per winter season, once you hit 80, you cannot comp anymore. You take overtime. And then if you had any lingering over, you would just start piling that back onto that, and then the following winter season, you'd hit 80, you would stop and go back on overtime. You would never be able to go over 80, whether you started with 0 or you started with 10 in that pool.
But if you're paying somebody out for over 80, then you still got to worry about when it was done.
Well, how does that work, though? I mean, we.
80 would be on that paycheck, Joe, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but wouldn't it? What hour is that? Is the first or the last? The first hour, if it was the hour was earned, if you hit 80 hours between November 15th and December 31st, and then you earn some more after that you got to be paid out for. Or I guess it goes to overtime, but I mean,
it goes.
Now you've got time banked between in the year before.
These are questions that are personally unrelated to the topic in a sense, only because we've been doing this that way forever. So I don't know. We've obviously are doing something wrong.
We're doing it right.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of totally. I don't know what the right way to do it is, but that.
I think a common workplace practice with compensatory time is the employer sets a freeze date where you have to essentially either schedule it, say, let's just use a date of December 1st. Either you schedule it by December 1st to be used through the end of the year so that payroll can catch up, and then, appropriately decide if it's a comp time off for the rest of the year or payout for the rest of the year.
But they can't use them.
But they can't
Right.
use it
Right.
that way because they need to be on call 24/7.
Then we have to start a practice of a carryover for everybody. I don't think I think having 2 workplace standards is an appropriate thing to do.
Well, we're the only one. Who else gets comp time? Nobody, right? Just DPW guys.
Just DPW, yeah.
So there's only one group of guys that gets this.
Everybody could get it though.
Yeah, but there's no way an office person would get ever 80 hours comp time, ever.
What about? I mean, every municipality does comp time, and we can ask questions on how other municipalities do it, just to get some ideas if you'd like. But just so we're on the same page and we're doing it right. But I guess I don't know because this is just how it was, But it's worked really well. Nobody's abused it. We've never had issues. It's just once they hit 80, you switch to overtime, and then you used it through the summer, and you were back at 0 and you started over. So that's all I can tell you from what I know.
And
Unfortunately,
the guys that use it the most are the guys with no vacation.
correct.
I don't think anybody here is disputing
Yeah.
any of these
No,
facts.
no.
It's
No,
just
no,
a
no,
matter
no.
of how do we do this
Yeah,
correctly.
I hear you. It's a little bit outside of what's in there.
Because we don't
It's-
want to. We already had a 1 WRS debacle. We don't need another. Like, there was a lot of time and money to get that figured out. I don't know what the right answer is here. I guess that's one we're gonna have to look at. I mean, like Mark said, we can't have on this one. I don't think we can have 2 sets of standards. We already have that, and then some other things from older employees and new employees.
Could you pay out bank on December 31st? The bank they have for November to then?
That's kind of what we do already, though, isn't it? I Then you'd just be on calendar
We
year.
never used to get paid out that. It carried over.
He's saying, I think if you came in the November 15th with 4 hours in there, it would be frozen kind of until the end of the year. You'd start accumulating new hours, but that 4 hours would just get paid out on your current year wage at the end of the year.
This is really sounding.
Yeah. I don't know how they did it in the past. I mean, I don't know what. It seemed to work. I guess we've never had an issue, but I don't know
Well, I
what's
can
the
see how
right
it
way or
probably
the wrong
worked.
way.
It was just.
It is kind of odd because you're right.
You probably got the newer wage, what it probably was.
Well,
but-
you are because in essence you comp that time up in November and December. Now, if it's a good winter, you could be comped up by January. So a majority of those hours were worked in 2020. Let's just say, for instance. Then 2021 came along, and you're using that comp time you were essentially earned the year prior at a lower wage, and now you're using it because obviously he takes 8 hours off. He's getting 8 hours of straight time at the potentially a 2% raise, whatever that year is, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how everybody. I mean, why don't we just ask everybody's doing it and nobody's getting pinched for it?
Essentially, if we like vacation carryover, we're doing the same thing.
But if you pay out,
That's true.
like John said, at the end of the year, you pay them out, say if it's 80 hours, then you start all over again instead of going into overtime.
In a perfect world, that is the best case scenario and the easiest way to do it. Its problem is if winter was from April through November, this would be simple, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. It's half and half. But like Joe just said, that's a good point. You're carrying. I could have vacation time 80 hours, which I shouldn't say this on record, but I've been carrying over 80 hours because just like a cruise now I'm going to go on. Then I use that week just so I have if I need it. If I don't go on vacation, then you're keeping that 80. So you're right. That 80 hours could be in essence banked from 2 years. I mean, right? 2 years ago.
Right.
So now I'm getting paid out on a 2 year later wage. So it's the same concept, I guess.
I mean, most workplaces that allow carryover require you to use the carryover as the first benefit bank that you would draw from.
How do you keep track if it's a pool of 5 weeks? How do you know if those 2 weeks were now? How do you even, right? That sounds funny.
You would have to draw down your comp balance.
Well, comp. We're not talking comp. This is
Comp or
strictly
vacation.
to me.
And then most workplaces issue, say you carry over from, let's just use last year. Say you carry over accrued vacation in 19 to 20.
Yep.
You have to use it in 20, otherwise you don't get to keep it in 21.
Right.
That's totally how we do it.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is, let's say I carried over 2 weeks, which is acceptable, 80 hours. I get 3 new weeks in this current year, so I have a total of 5 weeks. Let's say I use 3 weeks only. In essence, 2 of those weeks we could call old weeks, and 1 new week. Now I'm carrying over another 2 weeks again. So it's just, it's not much to that.
But you're using.
You're at least using 2 weeks. You're right. You're not trying to carry over 4
It's the
weeks and
first of the
throw
last,
in 2.
it's-
It doesn't really matter. Yeah, but it is the same concept though. In essence, with the hours you get paid from last, so maybe it's not. It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I guess I'd be in favor of tabling this to see what other workplaces are doing, or get some other ideas on this. Because I'd hate to have one standard for one group of people and no standard, a separate standard for the rest of the people. You know.
We're gonna run into that a little later too.
I like it's just for the plow. I mean, it's fair, I think, to a plow guy, seasonal plow guy. It's tough, Be cool if it was in the middle of the year, but it's not.
Well, let's move on from that one and look at the next one you got here, and we'll try to come up with something on there that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of valid points being talked about here.
All right, in 3.10, there was a typo. The word completed was missing the L, so it said completed. That's a minor fix. That was an easy one. That was in
It's just a typo.
Yeah, just a typo. That was an easy one. And then section 5.06. That was the overtime pay in paragraph C. Hourly paid employees, Sundays and holidays. The text that was struck today started at Public Works Department employees through Employee Benefits Manual. I did not understand that there was no double time ever. I just thought you meant on Sundays and holidays. So I talked to Joe and John, they confirmed that. So I deleted that, which I have. Right. Nope, that's a different page. So it was discussed before, I just didn't strike out the second sentence, so now it's gone. So now the sentence reads, hourly paid employees who work overtime on holidays as specified in the employee benefits manual shall be paid at a half plus straight time holiday pay, period. That's it.
Were they on a half
Yeah.
plus?
No, it's time and a half.
Paid time and a half plus straight time holiday pay.
Should they get 2.5? Am I reading this right?
On a holiday. Cause you get paid your holiday, Linda, and
Yeah.
then they're getting time and a half for work.
For working?
Right.
Okay,
Overtime.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Otherwise, no double time ever. So now that reads better.
Okay.
Is that normal?
No double time or the two and a
No,
half?
the 2.5.
Otherwise, you're giving them basically you're paying them for the holiday instead of making them take it at another point in time.
But don't they have to have so many hours in the week to get qualified for time and a half, though?
40.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if they don't have 40 in the week, then they don't get paid time and a half.
Right.
Okay, just straight time.
Correct, right, your holiday counts as.
As a day.
You get
Right.
your holiday one day,
Correct.
and then
But
and
you
then
have
if
to
you-
accumulate 40 hours altogether before you get the time and a half on a holiday.
The holiday's included in your
Well,
40.
holidays
Right.
included in it, but you
Yeah,
still gotta
I
go
understand.
40.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So
So,
if you have 32 hours in that week, you only get paid,
if you only did 32 total hours in the week, not including your holiday, because the holiday counts towards,
including the holiday,
yeah,
32.
then you would be single time.
Right, that's what I wanted to verify. Thank you.
Make sure that's what it says.
so what about hourly paid employees that work a rotating schedule?
What do you mean?
I'm just trying to think of a scenario where, say, a holiday fell during the week when it was a person's off day and a holiday. They're going to get paid time and a half plus time of holiday.
But if it was on a Tuesday, you'd get paid for the Tuesday,
Yep,
and then you would get paid. It's like if it was on a Saturday or Sunday, it would be either Friday or Monday.
yep.
Yeah.
So you get paid for that holiday plus the time you work that day. Otherwise, you'd be giving them the holiday as either comp time or, in the past, we just paid them out for it because it was over then. Plus, you were coming in to work on a
The only
holiday.
other department that would have something like that, Mark, would maybe be the fire department on a rotation.
Right, that's what I'm
Their
saying.
holidays are floaters, is my
Yeah.
understanding, so because they may get stuck working.
Right. No, but they are still hourly paid employees.
But they're not a part of this
I don't know how that works.
handbook. They have their totally different
There's a different
operating
handbook for them.
procedures.
So the other thing is, which holidays are we including? Because on here, I mean, I understand New Year's Day, that's a federal holiday, but New Year's Eve Day is not a federal holiday. Why is that a holiday that people would get paid 2.5 times if they worked that? Same with the day before or after Independence Day. I understand.
It's any normal
Independence
day they would have off. So we have a list of those. So any day that we give them off. So like, let's say if we give them off New Year's Eve, and that is one of the days. So the DPW is normally off on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, New
So
Year's
if-
Day.
Yeah, so if they come in on New Year's Eve, they normally would be off that, but now they're working it. We can't just screw them out of a holiday.
Why can't you make that the same type as we're doing for when people earn the comp time? Why can't you earn your holiday time as comp time as well? And if you get stuck working it, you get paid time and a half.
We never did it that way. We always just paid them because I don't know how other departments do it, but I know this is how we've
Well,
always done it for them.
That's how some other places do it.
So you're saying straight time they get paid?
No, which you take it would basically be getting comp time.
Right.
Okay.
But you get comp time for the holiday itself, and you get paid time and a half if
So
you have to work it.
New
But
Year's
also-
Eve Day is not a holiday.
Well, we have it listed as one.
Any day
Yeah.
any day that the DPW would be off is what this refers to.
Okay.
So any day that they wouldn't normally work if they had to come in. Now, this is only going to usually come into play during winter season. So we're talking Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's.
Okay.
So those days. So if they would come in any of those days, past practice was on that immediate check, they got paid that. What Today is referencing, you would do it as comp time, so you would get paid out at the end of the year or have to use it as vacation time, essentially.
Depending on what we do with that policy, but why wouldn't it function the same? I'm also wondering why the day before or after Independence Day is a holiday.
If days they're off.
Right, but
It's
why?
days we're not open.
We're not open before or after Independence Day?
Right.
Before or.
Right, but
Third and
isn't the
fourth.
standard you're closed on Independence Day, not also the day before and
What
after?
page are you on today?
114.
Of the packet.
Okay.
Those used to be floaters. We used to have 13, we lost 2. That Independence Day was a floater. They nailed it down with the DPW.
Independence Day, yes, this is before
The
and
before and
after.
after. And the Thanksgiving, they nailed those down. They made us take them on those days. That's just what they decided to nail down.
When we had the union contract, is what John's referring to.
Right.
They used to be floating days, and then it became where you just had to take them on those days. So it should be 12, I believe. Is that correct? 12 days.
Why is the day after?
Yeah,
I don't understand the day after.
I've never heard of that in
Independence
any
Day.
industry.
I've
It's
never heard
either
of
the day before or the day after. It's
Right.
not both.
I've never heard of it being either.
When you
No.
negotiate
Well,
a
that's-
union
I mean-
contract, you'd be surprised what you end up doing. That's what this is based off of, to be
Wow.
honest. It was give and take back then, and then when Act 10 came out, there's certain things that we did remove, like at that time, we took away, this is what we're gonna talk about a little bit too, is we separated the employees. Anybody that was here before a certain date still could receive the benefit of health insurance after 25 years. 25 and 30, excuse me. And then there was some other things that we ended up taking away at that point, but a lot of it stayed. So this is the reason, what we're talking about is why these dates were here, were because they were part of the union contract back in the day. So when Act 10 came out, you were allowed to change those. The only thing they were allowed to bargain for at that point was wages. So any of this stuff was, you could take or leave or take, essentially. But this is why it is the way it is. Because they looked at this as wage packages at that point in time. And you gave and you took things, so. And those were fun days. Just so you know the history of why it
I
is.
appreciate the history.
When I first got hired, you could accumulate up to, for sick time, up to 960 hours.
Mhm.
And then once you had, it was basically 10 years of not being sick. Once you had that, all the guys that were above me that was working up through till Act 10, they would get paid out. We got 12 days, 1 day a month. They would get paid out a 12-day check in December if they didn't use any days that year, when they had their bank full. And that all went by.
And
you know,
paid 100% on
and paid
retirement.
100%. And that all went, the payout in a year went gone. You know. But then the one contract that was set up with the days and everything, that went to arbitration and the town won, and that was kind of set for their contract then. To court.
Right.
Why
Yeah, we
is-
won something.
Why isn't Easter on here?
Because it's a Sunday.
Never mind.
Every year, too.
Yeah, that's true.
But Good Friday is on there.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, the days that are in the handbook, I mean, that's,
Good Friday, when I worked, we had off between 12 and 3 to go to church, but otherwise we weren't closed.
And we're open in the office Good Friday because that's 99% of the time it's the Friday before the April election. And the compost site will have either just opened the week before or opens the next day. So we're gonna be here anyway, so we take it as a floater.
I mean, I think one thing we could do is eliminate the Good Friday, not eliminate, but retitle it as a floating holiday, purely a floating holiday. And also the day before or after Independence Day, relabel that as a floating holiday. And if employees wish to, they can take a holiday as a floating holiday that day.
Or how about the
Well,
day
see,
after
and-
Thanksgiving?
That's the thing, floating holiday is essentially comp time, right? So why are we giving,
No.
well, yeah, because you take it when you want. That's the
Okay.
idea of a floating holiday.
Here's the reason why we took those, why we stopped having those as floating at that time. It was much easier to just shut the DPW down for a day and tell everybody to go home than it was to grab and give them another day off and then make it tougher for the DPW director to put something together in summer. That was why. To just tell everybody, instead of having those days as floating, we said, you're just gonna have off this day, because if we make it a floating day, now all of a sudden you got 5 people that can take off a day during the year, and now it makes it tougher for the director to put something together with paving or something. That's why that was done. That's why it was
I
done.
mean, I
then.
understand that, but given the amount of time that is being juggled with comp time anyway in this 80 hours,
It was
this,
another day, but it was another day. I'm just telling you why they were no longer given as floating days. Whether or not you think they should be days, period, is a whole other discussion. But the floating days, that was the reason back in the day. Now, I don't think we've had that discussion with you at all, but that was Mike Miller.
Keep in mind, John and I don't get comp time though, so if you start taking vacation and turn it into comp, we lose it, period. Our guys get it, we don't. I don't get comp time.
No, I don't think anybody's saying vacation time.
No, you just compare it to comp time.
No, holiday and
I'm
comp.
not saying you're taking away, I'm just saying, you're compared it to comp time, which John and I do not receive, that's hourly paid employees that only see comp time. Just so we're on the same page. Not saying anything wrong with it, and I hope it does. I'm just saying.
I mean, I think on page 12 of 15 for the employee benefits manual, we need to stricken floating holiday from that then.
Not the Good Friday one.
Yeah. If we don't have floating holidays, we don't have floating holidays.
But no, there was
But
more.
But isn't that it, Gina?
There was
She's
more.
talking-
That's for,
She's talking Good Friday, you have to be here, that's the issue
Right.
with that one.
Yeah,
You
there was
can't
there was
take off.
more.
Can't
To
close
rephrase
off.
that, there were
Right.
more days
So
than just that.
to address the comp time issue, I mean, I don't know what quagmire we're getting into with not floating or floating, but I guess then my point, if you want to have correct verbiage, would be instead of having time and a half plus regular pay if you work a holiday, if you work a holiday, my suggestion is you would turn it then into a floating holiday and you get paid time and a half for having to work it, right? Whether you call it floating holiday or comp time, you get the floating holiday, right? But I don't understand the 2.5 times,
You're
nor
saying
this
if-
list.
For instance, if it was Christmas Day and we had to come into work, you would just give us Christmas Day, we would get 8 hours of time.
Floating.
Vacation time off or floating.
Right,
So we would just get paid for time and a half, whatever we worked that day, and then take those 8 hours and we'd be virtually be able to use it in the summer the following year.
that was what I was suggesting.
Now, I don't mind that, but now I lose an employee rather than just paying them. That's another day the guy can have off when we're trying to do summer work, and it's challenging. We already have everybody taking off in the summer. That's just for that
This
becomes
can
an
happen
issue.
on about 3 days of the year.
Yeah, you gotta realize this is
So you're
very-
basically paying
it has
them
to
out.
snow on one of those days for this to even happen
Right.
for start, is the fact of, it did happen for a few hours on what, Christmas Eve maybe this year, I mean, that was it, very little. So out of the 6 days, we were here for 3 hours of that. Yes, it could on a rare occasion happen every 6th day, I get that, but maybe for, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and so this is so for the fire department though, that is what's happening, because if you read the next provision, that's exactly what's being set up, so the different departments are being treated differently
But
as
they
it relates
have
to.
work that day.
Yeah, the fire
Yeah.
department's got a whole different.
We don't have, I mean,
they're
we,
24 on, 24 off.
that's just how their schedule lands, like.
But they're not paid overtime or anything for the fire department, are they?
Yes.
So our-
Really?
Well, the fire department can get overtime. It's just a different level.
Because my
different hourly.
daughter, when she worked in the ER, you had to work a holiday. You had to do this.
Oh no,
Those are-
it's
Yeah, those are essentially
Regular
some
hours.
places call them essential employees that
Yeah.
have to be available 365 days a year.
Right, and they got paid nothing extra. Nothing. Hmm. Yep. But we pay the fire department though.
But they have a whole different setup of how you get the overtime, when you use it, if you're on
This is
24 hour.
confusing people.
Yeah. I know. Yes, it is.
I guess one thing I would suggest is instead of putting floating holiday right next to Good Friday, I would essentially make it a provision and not call it a floating holiday anymore, because there has to be some date that you actually earn it on.
Say that again?
I would get rid of the language of floating holiday
Mm-hmm.
on Good Friday, and essentially make a provision in the bottom paragraph there
Mm-hmm.
of holidays, essentially to state that should you be forced by position to work Good Friday, you will be given the opportunity to take the holiday somewhere else.
Okay.
But if you work it here, though, that's saying that we will pay you for Good Friday.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to eliminate is somebody who's forced to work Good Friday. They then get time and a half, and a holiday.
Are you talking about the DPW?
I'm not saying any person. I'm just saying an employee. Should they be forced to work by position, excluding the fire department, obviously? Should they be forced to work Good Friday?
Say like the office here. If they're open, you're saying Good Friday they only have off. But if we need them to work, they get an extra time and a half.
No. We have to be here on Good Friday.
Right.
Either for elections and or
Right.
always compost. So because we have to be here Good Friday and another department is not here on Good Friday because they don't have to be, the office staff just gets to take Good Friday as a floating holiday, another day off. We just get a different day.
Okay.
So if someone wanted to take,
It's a different kind of comp time.
Yeah.
yeah. It's still paid out at a regular
Yeah.
single time rate, hourly rate,
Yeah.
just another day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you always have off at the day after Thanksgiving. It's always been that way too.
Mhm.
They said these are what was negotiated in the union. Becky will remember this, because this was during the union contract. She didn't fall underneath it, but she got to watch people have it. Because it used to be the office, whatever the contract was for the union, the rest of the staff also, except for the executive employees, the rest of the staff was under that contract. But that's just so you know how that guy, we didn't just arbitrarily give everyone these days off. Actually, they lost two, I think, because there were more. So Mark, you're saying for Good Friday, so like right now, the DPW, if they had a snowstorm on Good Friday, they would get time for Good Friday, then they get time and a half to be there. But they wouldn't get a floating after that.
Right.
Right.
That's what I believe that somebody could read that way right now is
You would get time
you would
and a
get
half,
time
and
and a half, and
Oh, plus a floating.
plus
Right,
floating.
which we want to make sure that they
I
don't.
never even thought of that.
No, that's not good.
I would have
So,
never.
so
thought of
I would just say, I mean, Good Friday is Good Friday. Period. If you're in some workplaces call them essential, non-essential, whatever you want to call it. If an essential employee has to respond in, they would get their Good Friday rate, which is straight time for a Good Friday. What do they get paid when they come in though?
regular straight time.
Right, but that other provision doesn't allow for that.
Well, that's where this was supposed to be a floating. If they made a floating holiday, they could use it as comp time that day.
Page.
Good Friday is the only floating holiday now.
Page. I'm saying page 26. The first part we talked about in page 26 of 75 on the town employee handbook. Okay. So Good Friday.
It's got to be explained better.
Yes.
Are you talking section B?
C.
C.
See, yeah, because it's paid at time and a half. So what he's
Oh, I
saying
see.
right now is the way it looks in here is that you get paid your time for Good Friday,
Yep.
your time and a half for coming in,
Gotcha.
and then you'd also have a floating holiday on top of that. And we just want to make sure
Right.
people understand that there's not the floating holiday is if you work. Yeah, it's a
You
mess.
guys are giving us a whole hell of a lot more credit than we deserve on being that smart to do something like that. I'm just saying that.
Hey, I'll tell you what. They don't write employee handbooks for good employees.
There's no shysters here that are pulling that thing or anything, but thank you for giving me the credit. I appreciate it. But I get it. You're right. I mean, but wow,
Yeah.
I would have never thought of that in a million years. I would have
No.
worked 30 more years than doing it the other way. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Me neither.
I would have never came to that.
Yeah.
I get what he's saying, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's-
It makes
if it's
sense.
not,
Yeah.
It just never would have happened, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of thinking.
I'm not
to do
that
about
smart,
this.
but I just,
Could it say Good Friday or as a floating holiday?
I would essentially just take out floating holiday
And just say you're off Good Friday. What about
and
the
make
office?
make a provision for the paragraph below. You're not eliminating. I mean, I call
Not
Good
eliminating
Friday
it as a floating. You're
Right.
just going to explain it in a paragraph underneath.
because Good Friday is technically the third holiday they earn. I don't want it to be 3 and 4. If you are one of those specified employee groups that has to work as a floating holiday scenario, let's just define that in the provision sections below those lists.
Okay.
Because those employees on Good Friday are only earning straight time.
Got it.
They're not earning time and a half.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right, I will have the labor attorney wordsmith that. All right. Those were all the,
Also, just was reminded also with some of these days, the days were negotiated in lieu of raises back in the day. The number of days.
Yeah, I don't think we're taking away anything. I think we're just
Well, just so everybody knows, because I hear everybody questioning, why do you have this, why do you have that?
Yeah.
And if some of it was negotiated in lieu of raises.
Yeah.
Instead of getting a raise, you got an extra day off.
Oh.
Now, I know that was a long time ago, and a lot of those employees are still not here anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
it's however you want to view it as that.
Okay.
Sometimes we give up some of our range towards the day off.
Yeah.
It could cost a dime.
And we got rid of, I mean, there was a number of things. I mean, longevity went away. And there's things that is no longer in there that went. I mean, it wasn't like we didn't do anything when Act 10 came around. And your WRS, instead of the town paying it, the employee now pays it, which I never understood to begin with why it was that way, but it was the way it was. Used to be the town paid the WRS, the employee, and the,
really?
yeah,
Yes,
Wow.
So I
they pay both portions.
Oh, wow.
yeah, all 12%.
I didn't know that.
always did that.
Yeah. Schools too. That's why the schools got a big boost in funds when that happened. Except for the administration. Just leave that alone.
Okay.
Okay, what was the next one?
That was all the changes from the minor stuff that we found today on the employee handbook. The benefits manual, let me go to that one. There were 2 things. Find it here. This is what I got. Around, pass it around. It's on both sides. So the first one was about sick leave, and there was verbiage in there that stated, I gotta go back. There was verbiage in there that stated under sick leave for regular full-time employees. It's a bullet point on page 12. In order to receive paid sick leave, that paragraph, there was a statement in there that says the employee must indicate the reason for the absence, and if the call is late, that part of the sentence that's now stricken is the employee must indicate the reason for the absence. We can't ask them that. Only if it's FMLA related, then they have to state the reason. But if you're just calling in sick for a day, we can't ask you that. So then I modified the sentence at the end. Now it states, if the call is late, the reason the employee could not contact his or her supervisor at least 1/2 hour before the employee's scheduled starting time must be given.
Well, you have an in and an out. What happens if it's not given?
Not the reason why they couldn't call?
Mm-hmm.
And it's disciplinary action.
Yeah,
But it doesn't say that.
I think that's covered.
it's in the it's in the
manual.
handbook part of
It's
it.
considered
Okay,
unexcused.
okay.
Yeah. No call, no show.
Okay.
And then the other one, on the other page under sick leave, regular full-time employees, which is what Joe and John were just talking about, was the frozen sick time hours. I just added a sentence, for the 4 town employees hired prior to 2000, upon retirement, the town shall pay in full their 960 frozen sick time hours.
At what rate?
That's gotta get changed.
Did I not word that right?
We have 900, nobody has 960 hours frozen, except maybe the chief, because he's on a different, his contract
Okay,
and his years of service. But it was 100% payout of the frozen time in 2011, going into 2012 after Act 10, get out at 100% if you had 15 years of service with the town.
Mhm.
If you didn't, there was a percentage that would knock off that, and then anything earned after that, it's only 6 days instead of 12 days, and you get 25% of that paid out
At the current rate, when they retire,
at the current rate
that they retire.
that they
Okay.
retire.
Right, which is already addressed, so is the sentence not correct?
I think you need to check, because it sounds to me when they say they're 964 hours, I don't think anybody, you'd have to check Doug's bank. I'm not there, and I'm the next.
Or up to
Well, Doug,
maybe. Up
Doug
to?
couldn't accumulate more than 960 though.
Right.
So if he ever, he would
Oh,
get paid out at 25% of the new days, but if he used any of his days, then those one-to-ones disappeared.
Yes, but but the way it sounds to me, where I don't have 960.
Oh, I thought
Right.
everybody had hit 960 and they
No,
went,
no,
that's
no,
it.
I'm the next
Maybe.
highest from Doug,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm
So if Doug had,
below that.
Just take out the
So then I know it
960.
Yeah.
falls below me, and
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
mark
Just
it
say
below
you're
that.
Why is it
frozen sick
960?
time.
I don't understand how
that was the maximum. you could
That
get.
was the
you could
maximum.
have,
Okay.
Because they would pay out to 12 days at the end of the year if the guys didn't use it.
Okay,
This
okay,
is- And the bank would cap it at that.
okay.
See, and then after that 10, and we talked with everybody that bank could grow past 960, but you're only getting 25%. So no one's ever gonna hit the 120.
Yeah,
That's
no,
work here.
yeah, you'd have to never be sick for,
It'd have to be
20 years.
Because you're only earning half now, and you're only getting 25% of that half.
But when you say 960 hours, you said 12 days, that's more than 12
Oh, no,
days.
no, no. Years ago, when they came up with the 960, it comes out to like 126.
Used to get a day a month.
Well,
You get
it's
a day a month.
80, it's 80 days.
Right, Linda, but you used to get,
You
so if you,
accumulated it
if
year
you,
to
if you had
year.
maxed out your 960 hours
Yeah,
and you were accumulating a day a month, at the end of the year, that equaled 12 days.
oh,
And you'd be paid for that if you didn't use any.
okay.
So if you didn't use any, if you had 906 and you didn't use any, you would have got 12 days. We don't, now it's 6 days.
Okay,
It's a half day per month.
And, yeah, right.
okay, okay.
I just think that should be some clarification in there, so it's in there, so everybody knows, because in 4 or 5 years, I don't know who's gonna be sitting at the board, and if we don't know anything about it.
I think that red sentence there in sick leave should just entirely be taken out, and a memorandum of understanding should just be placed into each individual employee's file at a certain date and be done with it, because
Good idea.
each one of those 4 employees has a different circumstance. I mean, I think it's actually 3, because I think Doug's contractual,
Yeah, Doug's got a contract.
and it should be contractually binding for him, so that leaves 3 employees.
Yeah, 'cause we used to have contracts.
Yeah.
It was contractual.
I think that's a good idea, Mark.
the sentence wasn't in there until about 2 o'clock today.
Right.
So you
I'd
can
take it out.
this
I would
to the
I would take out the sentence, because then this applies to everybody else.
Don't confuse
The
them.
3 employees, one could argue 4, get a specific memorandum just placed into their personnel file, so the town has record, and so does the personnel. I think that's the easy way to solve it.
Yeah, I like that.
Then everybody knows whoever's sitting there.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I do too.
I was just kidding.
Who's the 3? Can I ask? You? And who else?
Me, Paul, and Mark.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah, Doug has his own, he has a lifetime contract being the chief. So
Which is just amazing to me.
all of them have it.
Really?
Yeah, lifetime appointment.
Wow.
I should say lifetime appointment and lifetime contract, but Doug's is actually a contract. That's,
Wow.
yeah.
we get our
I wonder
money's
why.
worth with him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's,
Oh,
yeah,
He's a
he's,
good man.
yeah, he is a good man. Mm-hmm.
Those are the only changes I had.
Okay.
So the one thing so far we have to go back and revisit is the comp time for DPW. The floating holiday, I've got, take out the floating holiday provision, state if you're a person that has to work Good Friday, you're paid straight time like normal, and given another day off at straight time, something to that effect. And those are the only 2 changes.
I have a question.
Me too.
On page 28 of the regular book, I thought we'd gone to everyone had direct deposit.
Can't force everybody to do direct deposit.
Yeah, you can.
I thought we couldn't.
No, you can. I mean,
Sure.
it's a nightmare when you don't because people don't cash their checks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have all these outstanding checks.
Or they
And
use
I
them.
thought we went to where all employees had to have direct deposit. And I know you can do that.
Well, then the town chooses not to, unless the board wants to.
I think we should. Make it easier.
Then you're gonna get a direct deposit.
That's fine, I used to have that.
Okay.
I don't know why it changed. Pardon me?
You didn't want a direct deposit, you wanted a physical check.
Oh, I think we changed checks, that's why, banks, and it caused an issue.
Oh,
That's why. I
I
don't
didn't
care,
know
you
that.
can put that in the account, that'd be great.
okay, we'll do that later.
Okay.
Okay, so. So
Does
the
that'll
board-
have to, is that gonna include poll workers?
No, they're paid through AP,
Okay.
To AP?
accounts payable.
Oh,
So then it'd be compost and
Compost, board, yeah,
commissions?
fire department, our regular employees. Board of Appeals is paid, AP, so is Police and Fire Commission.
So they're all getting checks?
Some are, I don't know exactly how many, but the majority of people are on direct deposit.
Well, I guess, why can't we do what Becky's saying and just have any employee of the town or employee of the town have
direct
no
deposit.
choice but to have direct deposit?
I think so too.
I mean, I think that would save a lot of time for,
Mm-hmm.
is that what you're going for, Becky? Is that,
Well,
There's two
because
different
you
time
had, we
allocations?
used to have a list of people who had never cashed their checks.
Oh,
And you have to keep track of those, and, I mean, it fell through the cracks like probably 7 years. I mean, and when I started, I had people who had checks that were 7 years old.
oh,
We have more people not cashing their tax collection refund check.
Oh, yeah. Well, when they're small, they don't do that either. You know, if they're $1.21, they don't cash them.
So do we wanna add that into this?
But that's why we put on all the AP checks,
Yeah,
this check is only valid for 90 days or
Yeah.
something.
and sometimes the bank still takes them after that.
Oh, I know, they did that to me with
Yeah.
a 2-year check,
That's too long.
yeah. And it said right on there,
Wow.
not valid after,
That's
yeah.
way too long.
Well, it was one of those banks up north, you
Oh.
know. It's just to me if you're an employee, now if you're a committee member, that's different because you only get paid when you have a committee. But your employees should get direct deposit.
We're fine with that. I don't know exactly why it was by choice, that was before me. I don't know, but yeah, we can do that.
wouldn't it be easier? Why, even on a committee, why don't they just do direct deposit?
Because they're not a payroll check.
Yeah,
Oh.
They're
AP.
because of,
No, there's no taxes taken out or anything on those, is there?
they don't earn enough,
It's
they
just
don't
straight
earn
out
enough to
paid.
take anything out.
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so add that into the manual somewhere.
Yeah.
so, just so I'm clear, what you're saying is leave the poll workers, commission members?
The poll workers, the plan commission, and the Board of Appeals, I think are the only ones that get paid, right?
And board of zoning.
In the
Yeah.
Board of Zoning.
They don't make that often anyway. Yeah, because they don't make enough money,
No, I get how much they make, but,
yeah.
because you have to, are you signing it? You have to sign all them,
Oh,
right?
hell no.
No?
No, stamp, isn't
It's
it?
electronic.
Yeah, but electronic.
Legally,
Yeah.
legally in the state of Wisconsin, all cities, villages, and towns, the head elected official, the treasurer, and the administrator are supposed to sign every single check.
But-
Nobody does.
No,
No, I remember that from, 3 years ago we did that?
alright.
Everybody good with that though? So everything but those committees and commissions and poll workers would get an AP check, the rest all is required to have direct deposit.
Alright. Works for us.
Shoot, I had a big question.
Linda's looking for that, did you have anything else,
Yeah.
Mark? Becky? Anything else while Linda's looking, Becky?
Yeah,
What-
just on page, it says retirement benefits, additional benefits. It says the town shall pay regular full-time public works and parks department not to exceed $100. Shouldn't that be on here yearly or something? Isn't it a yearly thing?
What page are you on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the
What?
safety benefits, that's for their boots.
Correct.
It is a yearly thing.
Right, but it should say a yearly thing. It doesn't say yearly.
You don't wanna put monthly?
You're in the employee benefits manual?
Yes, it's on my page 115 up on top. It says 115 up on top.
In the red.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the very last one. Isn't it the very last page
Yep.
or something?
Oops. Yep, besides the notes.
And
Yeah.
the word year.
Yearly.
Yeah.
Got it.
I just have one other thing, and I don't want to cause problems or anything,
Uh-oh.
but it says somewhere in here, and I was reading it on the computer, so the page numbers aren't right. It says full-time employees take a 1/2 hour unpaid lunch. Is that happening in the office?
Yeah, we work right through lunch.
Right, but in this, it says you have a 1/2 hour unpaid lunch. So that means that everybody in the office should be taking a 1/2 an hour lunch that's unpaid.
We just work through lunch. We
But
don't get
you're
a half
putting-
an hour to be paid. And
Right, but are you putting down that you're here from 8:30 to 4:30, or are you putting down you're here from 8:30 to 12:30 and then 1 to 4:30?
no, 8:30 to 4:30.
Then you're not taking a 1/2 hour unpaid lunch. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Never thought about it.
In other words, you'd be here till 5.
To get 8 hours a day. yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know, because it used to be the people in the office only worked 37 hours a week.
I never thought about it.
And I don't know if it makes it, but it says it in the handbook.
Where is it in?
Right. I can do a search.
I don't know
I
where.
do remember reading that.
Because
It is in
Well, it
here.
used to be, it was that everyone had to do a 37-hour week.
15 hour or
There was a
15-minute paid break and a half.
Yeah, you
an
get a
hour
15-minute
unpaid
pay,
lunch.
yes,
That's what
it does.
Well, that's what so legally after 6 hours, you're entitled to 1/2 hour paid lunch, or unpaid lunch, and then 2 15-minute paid breaks.
So are we paying the girls in the office who are hourly 40 hours a week?
Yeah.
Matt changed that.
And we just work through lunch. So our time cards are 8:30 to 4:30, which is what we work. And we just eat at our desk and answer phones, help people. Nobody
Every
minds
time the
it.
page.
So nobody leaves for lunch? Or
No, never.
What would we do?
And
if
I
we
always
did?
thought it was better for you if you got away from your desk for a 1/2 an hour.
Well, it is nice, dude. Some days you just can't. Nobody complains about it.
What page? Did we
Well-
find the page?
Oh, let me look.
They're getting paid for it, that's why they don't
They could
complain.
take it if they wanted to take it, though. Correct?
But then they
then
only
they'd
get
have to
paid.
work another half hour
Yeah.
though.
Right, but I mean,
Right.
they could, like, if they wanted to take a 1/2 hour lunch, they could leave at noon and come back at 12:30. I mean, we do allow that, correct?
But then they'd have to decide to work till 5
Right.
Right.
or get paid 37 hours.
Right. If they took a 1/2 hour, then you make it up and you just stay later.
But we don't have we allow it, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because we legally have to.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with people working through lunch. I rarely take lunch because you're
It's
just
just-
working
Yeah.
and in the groove as long as you're
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
But the problem would be taking a break to have lunch and still being paid.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Oh, no.
But it says, my thing is, it says it in here.
So you're saying get rid of that?
Or change, yeah.
Yeah,
We're saying
if
the same
they're
thing,
not
but
gonna
different.
do it, then it shouldn't be in there
Sure.
because,
Ooh, here, I think I got it.
It could say
3
may have.
3.08, which is page 10 of the handbook.
Right. But instead of,
3.08 work schedules. Let's see here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
instead of shall, could be may.
Oh, here. Town hall full-time employees will generally work 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. unless signed otherwise. Part-time seasonal.
Oh, it's just the last sentence of the page.
See,
There it
yeah,
is,
it
yeah.
says a
hour.
1/2 hour non-paid lunch period will be taken by all employees working 6 or more hours a day.
So we'll just
You have to
take that
change it to maybe taken.
Change it to May.
But then,
But technically, you have to offer them 2 15-minute breaks.
mhm.
Yeah, you may want to have that one just looked at. Oh, part-time and seasonal. Full-time employees are given 15-minute break to be taken at work as work permits.
Yeah,
A 1/2 hour non-paid lunch period will be taken by employees working 6 or more. I mean, technically, unless I did change, it's supposed to be 2 15-minute paid and 1/2 hour unpaid.
Then how do you put in there that if they do take it non-paid, then they're paid less hours for the day, or they stay till 5?
Well, it just may be taken. You have to
Right.
clock out if you take it,
mhm.
Yeah.
because they are hourly.
But like Gina says, they're all paid 40 hours.
But they're
Yeah.
paid on a clock. They're on a time clock.
Right,
Oh,
and we don't take breaks like DPW or parks, we don't.
okay.
we just don't
So
do
do you
that.
actually go on that when they clock in? Do you actually go on those time cards?
We don't have a clock to punch in, we just keep track of it on a spreadsheet,
Okay.
8:30 to 4:30.
So you look at that every time when you pay them.
I sign off on them,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's the same with us, Linda.
Is it?
We're here 8.5 hours a day, but they only pay me.
Yeah.
Get a half hour and pay lunch.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
But
Maybe taken.
the only way they can get paid overtime on that is if they got Joe or mine that does authorization.
Okay.
They don't take too much.
Okay. Okay. A lot to learn. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
Is there
On
this?
section, sorry, Linda, page 11 of 75, the bottom, upon the death of an employee, what's the green section added about accrued vacation? I mean, God, I hope this never comes up, but
What page?
11 of 75, the bottom, section 310A2.
2. Upon the death of the employee, in case of death, the employee may be eligible to receive, upon the death of the employee may be eligible to receive earned but unused vacation, holidays, or sick leave as provided by its terms of the handbook.
That's all normal, but then the next one,
Yep, provided however, no vacation accrued in the year of termination or death will be paid out. So where we talk about
so
vacation
it's just stating
accruing,
that it won't be paid out.
right,
Okay, yeah, I
So-
see that. I read it wrong the first time.
Yeah.
So I kept putting an if.
Now, when I put referred to the additional benefits before, that was for you guys. So the fire department, they have their own agreement.
they have their own standard operating procedures document, which
Does
is,
that say again like yearly? My question is, I guess that's all.
We'll have to look
I
at it
don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And what do they get a year?
for
Fire department people.
Safety allowance.
Safety
For
allowance.
shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the
I
budget.
don't know, there's a little more.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Some of their clothing
It's
Yeah.
heavier
is
and
bloodborne pathogens.
Exactly.
You can't
I
go up to a
understand.
victim
I
with
think
Yeah.
though they get, aren't they just issued that? They don't pay for,
No, not all.
They
of
can
them.
buy
get
their own and be
turnout.
reimbursed.
They can buy up to a percentage, and they get a dollar amount.
yeah, that's what I
Or it
thought.
is off the end, but
Yeah.
some of these bills can run several $100s.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of pocket for your medical stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
We would have to do that.
Thank you. Okay.
Going back to Joe's last one in 310A2,
A2,
what does it mean the employee may be eligible to receive? I mean, that then, I guess, leaves it to interpretation that somebody's discretionary over that.
right, I don't think it's discretionary, is it? Don't you have to pay?
Isn't it? I think I just need to put that last sentence up with the first one. So any Any final payout of an employee who has died while employed will be done in accordance with applicable law and Wisconsin state statutes. So that sentence should probably be moved,
On the top and get rid of that one.
yeah,
It takes out the main.
yep. There we go, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Just going back to one earlier that I had, there was a comment made that we can't ask employees who are using sick benefit what the reason for it is.
Yeah. Only if it's FMLA related and they're taking off more than the 3 days. If they're taking off more than 3 days, then we ask for a doctor's note or doctor's excuse. But if you're just calling in for the day, we can't ask you why.
Why is that?
It's illegal.
Says who?
HIPAA? You think it's
Yeah,
under
HIPAA laws.
Falls under HIPAA laws
Yeah.
now?
I mean, if there's abuse suspected, then there's disciplinary actions, which, for example, at my last community, someone called in sick. We couldn't ask why, we didn't. And then a few hours later, another employee saw this person on YouTube attending a Pink Heels event, and she was perfectly fine.
So what did you do?
I couldn't do anything about it. Somebody else handled it. Wasn't my employee to handle.
And what happened? Just curious.
Nothing. So,
Okay.
That's why a lot of companies just make it PTO and don't have sick or vacation.
yeah, you just,
Mhm.
you're off,
And
you're
it
off.
solves all of that.
Yeah.
I think most of the time when I have an employee call and sick, guys, they tell me.
Usually
They
say.
usually do, yeah.
And if I think there's abuse, I'm talking to them about it. And if I'm not satisfied with what they're doing, I'm coming up to the administrator, call my liaison, yeah, I'd like me to sit down. Something's not right here.
Okay.
But if,
It doesn't come up. Yeah. Till
most of them are like, I'm sick,
Yeah.
I'm a doctor's appointment.
Exactly. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I think the employer can ask why you're sick. I think we need interpretation on that because
Already emailed them. I emailed them this afternoon.
He won't be back until next week.
I copied Brett too.
Oh,
Brett
that's there.
gets back.
I think the employer having the ability to ask the employee why they're sick. I'm not asking them to disclose American Disabilities Act stuff, but or FMLA protected stuff, which they would disclose anyways. But I think that prevents abuse right off the bat for the good employees who abide by it. And I from every human resource training I've taken, you have the ability to ask.
Devil's advocate, it's their 6 hours, and if they use it up and then they do need it, that's on them. No?
It's a benefit given by the employer. It's
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Though, if somebody does abuse it and they use, every month, let's say every month we got a day, there are some employees I've seen in other municipalities that as soon as they get that day, they take it. And then they use up their sick bank, and then when it comes time that they really actually do need it because they really are sick, they don't have any sick time to go on, then they have to use their vacation comp time and then go on disability because they've already used
I
it.
think that's a completely separate topic.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
I'm pretty sure there is workplace case law that says the employer can ask an employee for a general reason of illness, but I'd rather leave that to the attorney to provide.
That must be for those future abusing employees. This isn't for the current employees, this is for the future employees. I got you.
Anything else?
Got a license rule.
Anything else? All right. So you got some questions on there.
Yep, not too bad. Closer.
All right. So this is a BNC essentially. We've been discussing both of those now.
Yep. Motion to
who wants-
postpone?
Who wants to make that motion?
Let's say,
Motion to post. I'll make the motion to postpone the Town of Lisbon Employee Handbook till the next meeting.
Yeah.
I second.
No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And C, discussion necessary action on the new Town of Lisbon Employee Benefits Manual. Motion to postpone until the next meeting.
I second.
No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
So close.
It's close. Close one
Closer
several
every
times.
time.
All right, 10A, discussion necessary action on the Wyckoff Color Corporation Development Agreement. After talking with Joe Dersanis and Jim Hammis today, I'm gonna ask that we postpone this to the next meeting.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to postpone the Wyckoff Color Wyckoff Color Corporation Development Agreement until the next meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Tadia. No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item B, discussion and necessary action toward the TID 1 Site Development Utility Extension Project bid to Wolski Construction in the amount not to exceed $1,211,550.51.
I thought someone from Kunkel was coming tonight.
Don could not make it.
Okay,
He is available for a phone call.
okay. So I thought he was coming.
I gotta find it in here.
It's on page 132 in the red.
It actually would be the,
Oh, no,
Oh,
it's just
I'm
on
sorry.
page number.
gotcha.
So
All
the
right.
total in his letter was $1,211,550.51.
So, when the bid was done, they had originally put a bid in of $1,132,786.50. There was a discrepancy in some of the linear feet, I believe in the piping. Don could explain it, we get him on the phone if you want to. But essentially, the corrected bid was $1,211,550.51. It is legitimate, and it is still the lowest bid. But there was an error in it. He explained it to me, like I said, he would be willing to explain it to the board tonight if you ask. But it was an error in tabulation that had happened.
So what was the original bill? I'm confused.
The original bid was $1,132,786.50,
Okay,
but there was the linear feet, how it was read in the bid was an error.
okay, gotcha.
It wasn't the correct number, so that's why it came out to that. So if you calculated it the correct
Okay.
feet, I believe that's how it was. Don could explain it fully.
Okay, no, it's not necessary for me. Thank you.
So, but that's why it's the $1,211,550.51.
Mm-hmm.
And they still are by far the lowest bid.
Right, but do you see that line 3 on their bid is substantially different than everybody else's? Is that an error, or do we know that that's,
Yeah, so it was
Wow.
line 6.
A penny.
and,
I mean, like line 6, sanitary sewers, manhole flume, they're at 22,000, where Wandra was at 6,000, Mid City was at 3,000.
well, yeah, but those are off by
Yeah.
15,000, the other is off by hundreds of thousand. I mean, that's,
Where was it taken up in?
I think line 9 is the same, where it's 1 cent.
Yeah, it's crazy.
but are we,
We get Don on the phone to explain it.
I just wanna make sure they
And they're
don't later
bound by
say that was a
this bid. They are bound by. He
Because
said he'd be available.
it could even be higher than the 1, 2.
I'm just most worried about that line 3, cause that's hugely,
Well, look at line 20.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
14,
I mean,
15,
not
16, all those are
Yeah, they must have classified things in
Okay.
different.
right. It could be that. That's
Okay.
exactly it. It could be that's classified in a different section. But we get, like I said, we get Don on the phone if you want an explanation. They are bound by the $1,211,550, and that is the bid. What you're worried about is all of a sudden they come back and say,
Mhm.
well, was this, but it's actually going to be more. There'd have to be a bid addendum at that point.
I just, when you see something that's that vastly discrepant, I worry.
And if you look, they've all got that. If you look down some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So like on, like Woodruff Construction's got one too, on line 16. We could definitely get Don on the phone if you want to ask him questions.
I just wanna make, well,
I would
I do-
think that
If you
they
think-
looked this over, they know what it is, so.
I do remember, usually, I don't remember getting this exact of a, before we used Kunkel, we wouldn't get, with our road bids, they wouldn't identify this,
A breakdown.
the breakdown. But, it's up to you, it's 7 digits. I can just tell Siri to call.
Well, is he gonna be able to explain why their number for that is so vastly discrepant and why it's reliable? Does he know where they reclassified things differently?
I don't know if he'll know off the top of his head, but, I mean, it's something,
I just wanna make sure we know that that's reliable, cause I am worried about coming back with an amendment of, oops, well, we should have known it was that vastly off.
Well,
Well, sure, they would notice that. I mean,
Yeah.
if they have 22,000 and everybody else has like 6,000.
But they don't know what everybody else's bid was. They just know what theirs was.
they only knew their bid, right?
Right. So
Right.
if somebody just messed up on one of the lines, they wouldn't know that comparatively.
But I don't, I guess
I don't understand.
as part of the bid, I don't know if they bid per item, I think it's just the total.
Okay.
Could be even like line 22, or is that 21 here? No, 22, construction erosion control. They're at 44,000 where
Everyone's
Wondra's
much
at
lower.
5 and,
Right.
next at 12, then 10 and 15.
True. So you're confident in it's classified differences, classification differences?
I trust Kunkel.
Okay.
Don is amazing. So is Mitch.
Okay.
But I can give you his number if you want to talk to him tomorrow, or like I said, we can still call him tonight.
That's all right.
Any questions on? Anyone want to make a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion to award the TID number 1 site development utility extension project bid to Wolski Construction in an amount not to exceed $1,211,550.51.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, that'll take us to item E, discussion necessary action on the 2020 seasonal portable restroom facilities.
Well, it's that time of year again. I sent out some bids for some portalet quotes for our parks and compost site. We've used Arnold's in the past, we've used Service Sanitation, Porta-John. I asked them all to give the same kind of bid with the hand sanitizers in there and everything, and weekly cleanings. My request to you, in consideration, is to give it to Service Sanitation. They are $70 more a month than Porta-John. But the issue I had with Porta-John because we used all of them in the parks. The issue I had with Porta-Johns is the weekly cleanings weren't done efficiently. They had a billing issue with us. They overbilled us. And when you'd call them, they wouldn't respond very quickly. So if we had a vandalism done to one of them, it's a Monday, they'd call me on Friday. So, or they'd call me the following week. So I'm asking for the Service Sanitation. He's in town. He did it last year. They did a great job. We had a little problem up here with the 2 handicaps because they could only clean us on a Tuesday, and I said I asked for a Thursday or Friday cleaning. They brought 2 units up for nothing, and they said, we'll just keep them there, lock them up, we'll open them up. We know those 2 will be clean for the weekend, so we had 4 units here for the price of 2. So I thought because they couldn't change their cleaning date because they're so big. So he's right in town here. If something happens, they're there in a couple hours the same day if I call if there's an issue. We have high winds and chain breaks, door bust off, on the hinge, they come right away. So with that being said, I'm looking for your approval to award the contract for 2020 seasonal to Service Sanitations for $670 a month. That includes 2 handicap and 6 regular units. So one for the compost and then the other ones in the parks that don't have restroom facilities.
What's the term on these?
The term as far as
Month term?
the cost?
No.
How many
How many months?
Oh, well, that all depends given they keep pushing soccer and baseball up, and up. My first soccer game's April 4th. We usually run them about from, and I try to go to the end of April, but I think the compost opens up April 6th, 4th. So they'll get theirs early. We sometimes get them out in April, and they usually stay until after football season's done. So it's like October. So it's about 7 months.
You get them all at the same time, or you kind of stagger them?
No, we get the compost one before it's open because the guys up there
So you
are a little older. They need
So you don't get them all at the same time?
no, and then we get them when we get them in the parks.
So
They
it'd be
come.
hard to do what you're thinking.
So it is.
We're good.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. Any
So I'm
other
just
comments or questions? I'll make the motion that we accept Service Sanitation's bid for the 2020 seasonal contract at the total cost of $670 per month. And we're going with a bid that is not the lowest per the comments from John Greiten, the park superintendent.
Right.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, John.
Oh, and one other thing, Mark, we do get them taken away at different times. It depends what field has football. Like here, they'll keep them longer. Stone Family's going early, Hallquist is going earlier, but okay.
Do they charge you a 30-day time period for each one? Or do they, if you say if you took it out,
month. Oh, if we get out early, yeah, they prorate it.
they prorate it?
Yeah.
Okay,
So you're not charged the whole month if I take it out.
okay, thank you.
All right, item F, discussion necessary action on town hall staffing. All right, so this is being wide open to a generic discussion about town hall staffing in general because it affects more than one position. Obviously, I'll let Gina explain a little bit on her end here, but she is asked to step down into the clerk's position. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on.
Sure. I have a statement, can I just read it?
Absolutely.
All right. And they don't have to ad-lib. Last week I spoke with Chairman Osterman and let him know that I would like the town board to allow me to return to my position as the town clerk. I appreciate the town board's leap of faith in me since June 2018, but I really have missed my clerk position. Being a clerk is really what I am. I may be a good administrator, but I'm a great clerk. I'm gonna cry, sorry. I feel this
You
would be
want us to read it?
No, I'm okay. I'm all right. I feel this would be the best for me in the town to reappoint me as a clerk and advertise for an administrator. If the board would like, I can continue to serve as the administrator until one is hired. If we get started on that now, we could probably have someone in here around late July, early August. Since both Dan Green and Dan Lindstrom left Lisbon, there has been too much on my plate. There's a lot going on in Lisbon, and I feel as though I'm not able to handle all of it as well as one should. I've been very overwhelmed the last couple of months, and it's taking a toll on me. There is someone out there who is a better administrator than I, and I'm okay with that. I feel as though I was needed to fill in at a time where the town needed someone like me in a leadership role to pull people together to get things done, which we did. We accomplished a lot in almost 2 years. I feel like the town is at a point where someone other than me would be much better fit to be involved in these higher level projects like the TIF district, economic development, utilities, infrastructure, issues with Sussex, trying to incorporate, etc. I really enjoy and miss my statutory duties, elections, licensing, records management, and working more with the residents. I felt out of touch with all that, and I miss being involved with the election process, training the election inspectors, helping people at the window, and actually being able to help them. Once again in my career, I stepped back from being the clerk, only to realize that that is really what I am meant to be. I know I can serve everyone in Lisbon better as your clerk. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, one other thing, and it just came up within the last couple of days. My father is going to be almost 80, and he has pneumonia, and I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. So it's kind of the timing that if something happens and I need to leave, someone will be able to fill in for me as clerk. and then the administrator will already be here, so. So that's that.
So this will have an open discussion, obviously. I mean, as far as, we have to decide what we're gonna do. We have Rick right now.
How would that affect the contract that we have with Rick?
Right. So timing wise in that,
We have him through July 2nd. I think just depending on how the town wants, whatever the timeline is, we can ask him if he can extend it. If he can't, then we'll have to figure out.
I don't think we're worried about extending it.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, if you're gonna step into the clerk's position,
Oh,
if it would be sooner, like, we haven't talked about any of this yet, obviously. but I
Right.
mean,
so my thought was I would still continue to do the administrator job, he would still be the clerk, and then when we hire somebody, it would just be a domino effect. Administrator would start, I resign as administrator, appoint me as clerk, and then Rick would be done.
And if we were to find somebody sooner, is Rick okay with that?
He's just happy to help. He said he'd do whatever we need him to, in whatever role he needs to. Everyone's been really supportive. Even my parents. I thought they would freak. They did not.
so we would, at that point, be looking for an administrator. I did contact the company we used last, not obviously with Gina, we just promoted her up, but before that, we had used GovHR. Now, we had done a limited contract with them. I reached out to them and they submitted a RFP, which I did get in an email, but essentially it's between $20,000 and $25,000 for a full start to finish program for hiring an administrator. Now, that's one company. There's different levels of that. Like if you wanted them to handle everything start to finish, that's what it would be. I think we paid around $7. I could be wrong the last time, and they did background checks and they helped us in what we needed. So you're talking anywhere from, I'm sure with inflation, you're probably between 8, 9, 10 up to 25, depending on what you want to do with them. Haven't looked at anyone else, just wanted to talk to them to see what it would be. And I'll send that email out to everybody. But, so that's, if we want to search out companies, if we want to do it in-house, I will tell you it's a process. I think, I remember who was with, Becky was here, Linda, you were here for the
No.
last, no? So just Becky and I were here?
Can we find out what is included? The full scope is 25,000.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll send it out to everybody so
Okay.
you can see.
And in comparison to what the 8 to 10, what they do for that.
Right, I'll send it out to everybody, and then Lee is his name, he would come out and talk. Now, this is one company, there are other companies out there. I tried to reach out to Dan DeLeet to find out what he would recommend. I think that's who we got a GovHR from last time, but Dan's on vacation this week, so we couldn't get anybody.
In what you're gonna send out, though, does it have a breakdown by which services and cost per each service, or is it just?
I just got it, so.
If it doesn't, can we get that from you?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
talk to Lee and he'll do that. He did a quick, just put together for us.
Right.
So,
Rick also has experience working with hiring administrators. I don't know to what extent.
he did call today
I
and
just
offer
didn't know.
his services as that also.
Yeah.
I have not talked to him yet though either.
Is that the lead?
No, Rick, our
Rick.
clerk.
Oh,
clerk.
I got you.
Right. Nothing with Rick there, but I don't know how excited I would be doing that with
Right.
him already being contracted as the clerk, but,
And that's understandable. He just wanted me to let you know.
yeah, he did, he left a voice message for me
Oh,
today,
okay.
but I just hadn't talked to him about it. So there's a
Were
lot of
you-
things we're gonna have to consider.
Were you happy with, and you guys happy with what they did to get Matt?
You know, we were coming off a very bad situation when that all happened. And I think they led us down a good path as far as how things went. I think, I don't know if I would have done it the same or not. Matt, I wasn't the chairman back then, but I thought, Gerke did a good job with it. I mean, he did put a lot of time in that. We did limit their scope of what they were asked to do. We advertised ourselves. I think the advertising might have been the one area we might have hurt ourselves on, to be honest with you. I think having somebody do advertising and marketing that knows what they're doing is very advantageous. I think that's one part. I think that's one of the bigger costs. And then where are you targeting? Are you targeting just the state? Are you targeting national? Who do you want? And that kind of stuff. I don't remember how that all went. It was a while ago, so I don't remember how we did all that.
Mm-hmm.
They really helped with the interview process and vetting them. I mean, we knew what they had for dinner the day before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we knew their mortgage, we knew their credit score, we knew everything, what was on the credit cards, everything. It was very intrusive in my opinion.
Wow.
But we had some trust issues coming into that. I mean, Becky was here at the town hall at that point with Sandy. So, but so were you on the board when we hired Matt or no? No, you were in the office
I
here.
was in the office.
Yeah, so I was on the lone duck. But, I mean, so we have to decide if we want to do it ourselves, if we want to use an agency to do this. You know, what do we want to do at that point? I guess we're gonna have to have a discussion with you about things, you know. I guess what I would, and we haven't had this discussion as a board, obviously, but, you know, we have to talk about how this would look and how it would work. I mean, I guess, you know, if you're functioning as the administrator, you know, I can't see a pay rate changing in any way, shape, or form. I don't know anybody here would either, but we'd have to talk about that. I guess I would see it being, stepping in like another interim administrator position in between.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's nothing, you know, obviously, I know you're sincere with this, but if we have a contract with you and we hire an administrator and you change your mind, we're in trouble.
Well, I'm not gonna change my mind.
Right, but I mean, I guess at that point,
Yeah.
you know, we'd have to talk about.
I did
the
ask Felita
process.
about what happens to the contract. It was nothing really. It was you just resign as one and they appoint you as the other.
Right.
Seems too easy, but
And then there's no, is there a contract involved with being just a clerk?
nope.
Not just a clerk, it's an important position, being a clerk.
Nope.
We'd have to decide on, obviously, pay rate.
Yep.
We'd have to talk about that and then, you know, how that position would look at that point. You know, this could be, I mean, honestly, we could look at this as looking at the entire town hall staff again and what we want it to look like. I mean, essentially, what we want to do. I mean, we have the potential of, you know, obviously, we're not going to get incorporated this year, but, you know, we have things like the sanitary district, and I haven't talked to Dennis. You know, it was envisioned that if we were incorporated this year, that the sanitary district would come in-house. Well, maybe that's still something that happens that we have to talk about and start a utility committee. You know, because we are going to have potentially water now with the lead site. I mean, we're talking about being a private system, as you heard with John tonight, but if we were to join with Landon at any point in time, how would that look? So, I mean, that's something we have to talk about. And just because, you know, essentially, we have to decide how that's going to go. You know, and we're going to need somebody to do billing in-house at that point if we were to bring it in-house. So, I mean, that's something to talk about. Amy's position, the treasurer position, I shouldn't say Amy's position, but the treasurer's position about, you know, taking that up to like a 32-hour mark to help with things there, you know, which would be make that a full-time position with benefits at that point in time. You know, something to talk about there. I think we had been, you know, if sanitary came in-house, I mean, that would be, I think, a great fit right there. So, and that's, I believe she's willing to do that.
Yep.
But is she willing to add on more hours? I know she likes her summers off.
We'll have to have that direct discussion with her, but I believe she is.
Okay.
It times out better now with her kids and their ages in school, because then they'll both be in school full-time. You know, at the time she started, yeah, they were younger, so. But that's all I know.
But I mean, if we're gonna have an all open discussion, I mean, this is the discussion.
Okay.
I guess how would people feel, you know, as far as hiring? I mean, do you have a preference right now as far as using an agency to hire out, trying to do it in-house? This is involved. I mean, this is not we got lucky when we did this last time, but it is not a small process by any means.
I think we have a lot on our plate, and I think using an agency is a good idea to get a good candidate pool, but I'm interested to see what that panoply of services are in cost to determine which parts maybe are
Agreed.
still worth our
Agreed.
time.
And he would be willing to come in and talk to us too. I mean, if we want to get another firm involved also and try to find, I think we need to get.
I probably would want other
Yeah.
bids,
Oh, yeah,
to understand what.
Is
Right.
this the same company that does both, excuse me, you know, that's doing the minimum as well as the full scope?
Yes. This, I mean, and like I said, I just went back to the one we had used last time, so
Okay.
I know there's others out there too.
And this is the one in Illinois.
I guess I don't remember where they're from. Could be.
What you emailed us was Illinois.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah, Northbrook.
I would be in favor of putting out a RFP to solicit companies that could I mean, I think you'd have to, in your RFP, to get that breakdown, you'd have to request it specifically.
Mhm.
You'd have to know what
What we want.
your windows are.
Right.
Is there anybody locally
I have
in
no idea.
Milwaukee? Yeah.
I only know of GovHR.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to obviously decide, you know, a lot with that also. So you'd be putting an RFP out. Becky?
I wouldn't wanna see us do it ourselves.
Right. You're on board with that, Linda, or?
Yeah. I haven't been through it, so I'm naive and I don't wanna ruin anything.
Yeah, it's involved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is, when we start this process, plan multiple nights in a row of candidate interviews. This is gonna be, it's like budgeting times 10.
Sorry.
It's part of the process.
I know.
But I mean, it's important. I mean, it's an important position.
Mm-hmm.
I just wouldn't wanna put the RFP out until we have the defined scope.
Exactly. I
Well,
agree.
How about setting up a workshop for us to go over and talk about things? I mean, about anything with pay, we should, obviously, we're gonna talk about that too, but,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I guess I'm blending what Linda just said and what you're saying is, we have to know as a board what level we want to get into.
I think so.
How do we know what RFP to put out unless
Right.
we define a scope for the parameters for people to give a return bid on?
right.
Agree.
So,
That's what I'm thinking, you know, we could get some more information and have a sit-down workshop with the board to discuss this,
That'd be fine.
to put an RFP.
Okay.
I mean, we could do as a whole, I think this is something the whole board needs to do.
yeah, I was thinking, can we have an open advertised workshop for any interested company to come in and essentially tell us what the scope could be? I guess I'm unfamiliar with what that process would be.
Well, we
Me
could
too.
find some firms that wanna come in and talk to us. I'm sure, I mean, this is not a small deal, so I'm sure they'd be willing to send somebody out.
Right.
Like, we could search out, I mean, we'd probably have to reach out to them, I'm assuming, no?
Right. How do you throw it out there for people to come back to essentially help us build our idea of what our RFP needs to look like?
Isn't this kind of what we did with the planner?
Kind of.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how we started that one.
I don't know how it started, but I know they came in, presented to us about,
That was a little, I don't wanna say simpler, but it,
I think those were we solicited people to come.
yeah,
in.
we didn't hire somebody to find them, we didn't actively recruit, which is what we'd be essentially doing here.
Wouldn't
Well, but we-
Milwaukee, I would think that somebody in Milwaukee that, they do this all the, solicit people for positions.
I've got one person I know is gonna call me with some names tomorrow.
Oh, good. Okay.
Um,
Or maybe even through your position with Milwaukee, do you think you would know of someone there?
oh no,
No?
totally different.
Okay.
I mean, this is essentially not doing what Mark's, I mean, you're talking about setting an RFP and see who's interested in doing it. This would be
Right.
physically contacting people, bringing them in, and then deciding what scope you wanna use. So it wouldn't be the same as an RFP, but.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
we-
but then
we-
you put out the RFP.
then you
and
put out the
whoever wa-
RFP.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Because now the
whoever
RFP
wants
is specific when you
Right.
put it out.
Yeah. I don't know how they feel about that.
I don't. I guess I'm unfamiliar to it.
Me
Yeah.
too.
I don't know if we could.
I can reach out to WCMA and ask them if they have any white paper guideline things.
Okay.
I can do that.
I mean, I know there's places that have large HR divisions, but then they still. I mean, not to name a company, but say they would use GovHR. They have a defined scope of services that they use them for, whether it be just the advertising, and then all selection and interview is within house. I guess we're not to that point of knowing what our boundaries are to issue an RFP. That would have to be specific to come back to us.
Right.
And why did you go, Joe, why did you go with the person that you went with for Matt at the time? Just because
Timing was very, tight
important, yeah.
and important at that time.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, it was,
Okay.
yeah, it was all timing. And Dan the lead, I believe, had recommended, I believe it was Dan, I don't remember 100%. I think it was Dan had recommended him.
Okay.
It might have even been Nancy Perky back then, I don't remember.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm not saying we have to go for an RFP. I mean, if we come to a consensus on a trusted company that we want to go with, I guess I was looking at the RFP just so we can compare what apples here cost apples over here and make sure that we're making the best tax dollar decision.
Right. I mean, I want to make sure we use a reputable company, no doubt about that. And then, because, you know, good candidates are going to go for good companies in this deal, and they're essentially going to be selling us. I mean, I know it does show in there, it shows their, you know, the selling brochure they put out there for us, the marketing brochure, essentially, saying this is the community. I mean, this is where a lot of the work comes in, is they come in and they kind of sell you to these candidates. Now, are you going to want to look nationwide, or are you going to want to look just locally? That's another, they're going to ask that question. You know, what kind of candidates you're looking for? What's the pay scale you're looking for? What's going to be expected of them? What's the job description?
Are you gonna pay for moving
Are
expenses?
you going to pay for moving? You know,
I
if you're
think
bringing
it's
people in from out of
very
state, you're going to end up
involved.
paying for their flying in and out on that. Typically, it's the top three only. So,
I'll have to think about then.
yeah,
I
this
think
is a
we
big
should
deal.
have a workshop.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
Okay.
So, okay. Do we want to do that on a town board night, or do you want to do this on a separate night?
Whatever works for everybody else.
Doesn't matter to me.
I guess I'd rather just workshop it and have it off the town board agenda. So a separate night.
Separate night. Okay, we'll work on a date on that.
Okay.
Do you want to, I mean, it would probably, in the meantime, two of us to be involved with talking back and forth with, maybe get some companies involved. I mean, so we don't have to come back to the board every time to get this. I mean, do you mind, I guess I don't know who it would be. I guess I'd like to be involved, and if somebody else can help out or just be a point of contact to bounce things off of. I mean, essentially, we cannot involve you in this.
Oh, I know.
So
I know.
don't think I'm trying to just, but I mean,
No.
it's not a good idea at this point.
No, I know.
So
Wasn't even gonna
it's gonna have
ask.
to be on all of us, just so the board, it's more not for
Right.
you, more for the
No,
board
I
to
know.
understand this. This is on us. This is not something we can have.
I
you-
think Mark with his experience would be good. And Becky, and I know Becky's got experience, but today is busy. But you would be good
Busy,
too.
who's busy? Somebody's busy.
Well,
And I don't know anything about it, so I'm not, you know, I want to
Not it.
No
learn.
time like the present to learn.
I want to learn, but
So I just threw my name in there right away.
I don't mind doing it.
So, okay. I can only talk to one other person
Right.
during the week,
Yeah.
so I don't mind who it is.
I don't mind doing it. Excellent.
Do you want to talk and
Sure.
see if
Why don't you two figure out who it's gonna be, and then
Okay.
if you guys don't care,
don't care.
all right. And this is not making decisions, this is just looking at different, just bouncing ideas off. And like I said,
Exactly.
only two of us are gonna be able to talk about this, so, until the meeting or the workshop. All right,
I
you two
can
can do the
call,
celebrity death match.
my brother owns an employment agency, and I can just call him and ask him what kind of things we should, he deals mainly with schools and, large private schools that, and he might have some ideas on what you want to tell someone you're looking for.
Good idea.
You know, so I'll call him and ask him what maybe we should look for.
Is he local? He's out, isn't he?
No, he's in California,
Yeah, that's
but
what I thought. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Any information we can get would be great.
All right, so then you can reach out for just dates.
Yep.
Do a doodle poll or whatever we gotta do to figure out some dates.
What day of the week generally doesn't work for everybody, other than Fridays?
Why don't we just doodle poll it?
Doodle poll it? All right.
I think so. Something here might be a little difficult.
Okay.
So
Any
are we
other
gonna have to sever the administrator contract on an effective date to now start a administrator recruitment?
Or do we do that when we get close to hiring somebody?
Well,
Or should we change it to interim now?
well, essentially Gino will have to, let's talk to Valit, he's back here on Monday.
Yeah.
Let's talk to him, we'll figure out what we gotta do. I have no doubt you're going to relinquish that position. You wouldn't have done this for no reason. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But just to make sure everything's in line there, and go from there.
Mhm.
Okay. But, I mean, yeah, it is something we have to do. We have to go by the book on this one.
Right, because essentially, we honor Rick's contract until July 2nd.
We don't have to.
We have to.
Oh, I thought you said we didn't have to. But you talked.
I mean, the town would.
We
He
would.
can. He can enforce that.
Oh.
Right.
He can also voluntarily
Once you find out. from
terminate
him,
it.
Okay.
Get an official stance from him on that. That'll depend on, that might change things. I mean, we're not gonna have an administrator by July 2nd.
Correct. But
It's just not gonna happen.
I mean,
Maybe like Gina said, maybe the end of July, but probably August, because then they're gonna have to give time to leave.
Right.
So even if everything went perfect, I mean, it's 30 days minimum for an administrator to leave a position, and if they don't give that, there's something wrong. So,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay.
All right,
Perfect.
next item is adjournment.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, we're out at 8:38.